1 minute. Good evening. I would like to take this opportunity to welcome you to the school board meeting this Tuesday, July 16th, 2024. Please stand for the pledge.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. As we continue to process and give the beyond horrific attack that took place at the Trump rally on July 13th in Butler, Pennsylvania, I am asking for a moment of silence to honor and recognize former President Donald Trump, Corey Comparatori, a father, husband, and firefighter that was senselessly murdered, the victims that were critically injured, as well as all of the victims' families. We wish a quick recovery for former President Trump and those injured. Please join me in a moment of silence. Thank you. Superintendent Connor, the superintendent's report, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We'll wait a moment as we pull up our slides. All right. So good evening, board and community. It's been a great summer so far. It's hard to believe we are just a few weeks away from the start of school, but as we process through mid-July here and into the beginning of August and the start of school, I want to highlight a few things for you this evening. First, on our consent agenda, item number 16, which is the approval to purchase materials and services for a return on investment platform entitled Glimpse, is something I wanted to highlight for the board and for the community. This is a digital platform that we are looking to pilot with our budget services. As you know, when we're looking for return on investments on our product services, educational platforms, and other resources, it can be very difficult to garner what those metrics are and how we are making progress. And so we're going to utilize the services of Glimpse to help us with it's a solution to help measure that educational return on investment. And so we're looking forward to seeing how that can help us better utilize our taxpayer dollars so that we are getting the best services and more efficient. Item 17, as a great highlight, this is the approval for the construction of a soccer field for joint use at Oak Park School between the county and the school board. This is a joint use facility. It's going to not only benefit the students of Oak Park and the faculty during school hours, but it will be a state-of-the-art lighted soccer field and track in collaboration with the county so that the community at large will have access and will benefit from these opportunities, such as youth sports and other events. So looking forward to that and breaking ground and moving forward. Couple of highlights and achievements. Pineview is one of 3 schools moving forward in the ARISS selection, so congratulations to them. So if they are selected, they will have the opportunity to make radio contact with the crew members of the International Space Station. Congratulations. TSA National Competition. TSA stands for Technology Student Association. our middle schools participate in this event, and we had some of our high schools as well. And so the table that you see here shows how we fared out in the competitions at nationals. And I want to congratulate our two schools, Sarasota Middle School and Woodland Middle School, for winning first place at the TSA Nationals. We want to highlight one additional leadership change that happened last week. Mr. Sean Donovan, who is serving as an assistant principal at Sarasota High School, has now been selected to serve as the esteemed new principal at Oak Park School. Congratulations, Mr. Sean Donovan. Just want to make the community aware of an event. I'm going to be starting a series called Coffee with Connor. We're going to start the first one right here in the board auditorium on Monday at 8:30, from 8:30 to 10. There is no agenda that is going to be prepared for this. This is an opportunity for the community to come and share their ideas, share their concerns, and we can talk about just about anything school related and educational related. So it's just an opportunity to connect with you and the community and the public for any topics that are of top of mind for you. Looking forward to this first one. We will then put out a schedule for our spots around the county. So we'll be in North County, South County, all around Sarasota throughout the year with events like this. So looking forward to that. We do have a job fair that I want to make the community aware of on Thursday, July 25th from 10 to 1 p.m. at our STC Northport branch. Please come out, and if you are interested in the many careers, we have several vacancies that as we begin to start the school year, whether they be instructional or non-instructional positions, please go to our website. You can find that on our website, what those vacancies are, or come to the job fair, and we're hiring. One announcement I'd like to make too, as you know, we've launched a podcast recently this year. We're about 4 episodes in, and I am proud to say that we are adding more languages as we continue to do this. So now our podcast, which for this month is around our new K-8 school off of Lorraine Road, is now in English, in Spanish, and now Russian. Thanks to the artificial intelligence, actually, leveraging technology actually has been a very great thing for our school district. And so we've had quite a response already. So looking forward to that as we continue to meet the needs and reach out to as many community members as possible. I want to go over for the board's consideration tonight a proposed reorganization of one of our departments. I'm very excited about this because is we're adding a lot of positions here, but we're actually only impacting our general fund very, very minimally because we're going to leverage our federal entitlement grants like Title I, Title II, Title III, Title IV, as well as a state grant that we secured this year called the Stronger Connections Grant. And so, as you know, we have a federal programs department that is currently under our budget services, and we are going to revise that department and create the Office of Strategic Improvement in Multilingual Learning. So the idea around this is not only to be in compliance and to leverage all of our entitlement grants, but to also really enhance the support services that we're providing for our multilingual learners, our ESOL and ELL students. And so as you can see here, I've color-coded the chart here. We would be upgrading our current supervisor of federal programs to director of strategic improvement now that they will be overseeing a large department. We would be adding a private school specialist, and I'll go over what that job description is in a moment, a grant specialist, and then we'll be funding some program specialists for our ESOL department in order to support the ever-growing needs of our 4,200 ESOL students within the school district. As you can see here, we have a funding sources that 52% of the positions of this department are funded through our federal entitlement grants, 24% funded through our state grants, 16% was already funded out of our general fund, and we are only adding about $89,000 to the general budget to add this particular department. So the Director of Strategic Improvement, this person currently serves as the supervisor of the state and federal programs with the expanded responsibilities of managing approximately $15 million in federal funding and now overseeing the strategies for our multilingual learners. And the key roles, overseeing key roles such as ESOL supervisor, federal programs coordinators, and our specialists. This will really move us beyond the compliance to a more tailored support that we're strategically allocating our resources to make sure that we're reaching our students who may have language barriers, as well as our students who are served in our poverty, that are low socioeconomic students, such as Title I, as well as Title III. The private school specialist position tonight that you'll be seeing on new business will be working with our private school administrators to implement and to monitor and enforce equitable services. Equitable services is something that we're required to do by federal law for our entitlement grants. And so in consultation with private schools, those who participate in that, which we have about 35 private schools, this person can really dedicate the time to make sure that we are monitoring those equitable participation in those federal programs, as well as providing the training and maintaining the compliance with that particular oversight. And that's very important because that is a time-consuming task as you're administering these $15 million in federal grants. Equitable services is a very time-consuming, compliance-driven mechanism, and this person can help oversee that to make sure that we remain in compliance. I'm excited about this position that we are proposing tonight, called the grant specialist position. This person will collaborate with each of our departments to support the research and development of any grant opportunities that may exist and helping submit those competitive grants. As you know, grant writing is a skill, it's an art, and it takes someone who has the experience and the know-how to really help secure these competitive grants. So in time, I believe as we secure more competitive grants within the school district, this position will be more than paid for by the money that is being brought in to support whatever those initiatives are. So they're going to be working with district stakeholders to secure funding and ensuring that all of those grants are meeting the compliance requirements and achieving the metrics therein. So looking forward to that. And then lastly, our ELL parent and family outreach facilitator position. Right now, we currently contract services for this, and we want to make this a permanent position within this department. As we said, as we are increasing our population of ELL students, we want to make sure that we're supporting those families, reaching out to them, making sure that we are implementing all of those engagement activities with fidelity and being a resource for our parents and communities for students who speak other languages. So that is what this position is, and I'm very excited about this entire department, the Office of Strategic Improvement and Multilingual Learning Support. And that is my presentation for today, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Superintendent Connor. I have two pieces I'd like to share before we move into public comment. One is on behalf of the board, wishing Jamal Gwalar a happy birthday. Our right arm, and we truly appreciate you, and I have for several years. And secondly, I'm doing this as a privilege of the chair, and seeing that the local Democratic Party has done a call to action for folks to come to this board meeting and to sign up for public comment. I have something that I, as the chair, would like to share. For months, the women on this board, primarily sitting on this dais, have been personally attacked. We are duly elected constitutional officers, mothers, teachers, and educators. For the first time in my history in this school district, you are using this chamber and public comment to run political campaigns for 2 school board seats and misleading the public with misinformation that holds zero evidence. You have created an environment where, according to the police report, 1 attendee was slapped and battery charges were filed. Parents and taxpayers are afraid to attend. The 3 women on this board have police escorts to our cars and have for many months. The Sarasota Herald and the Venice Gondolier education reporters perpetuate political sound bites without credibility, a far cry from reporting the great things happening in our schools and classrooms. Your regular political rallies on school board property and disrespectful behavior in this board chamber create chaos. I am formally, as the chair, and individually asking you to take your political agenda away from this chamber and our educational environment. I urge you to model respect and civility. Sarasota is better than this. Our school system is better than this. Thank you. Moving to the hearing of citizens, we have 40 folks signed up to speak this evening, and I'd like to welcome you to this segment of our meeting. All speakers should have submitted a completed comment card before this segment. Each speaker will have up to 3 minutes. Please conclude promptly when the timer ends. Please address your comments to the board, not to the audience. Abusive language, personal attacks, or disruptive behavior will not be tolerated. Audience members are requested to listen quietly and respectfully. Outbursts, applause, or other interruptions that disrupt the meeting are not acceptable. Any person that interferes with the expeditious or orderly process of this meeting after first being warned that such continued interference will result in removal will be removed. There are speakers in the room behind me that allow board members to hear public comments when stepping away from the dais. When your name is called, please approach the podium. If you choose to pass, you will forfeit your time to address the board. As a reminder, a recording cannot be played during your 3 minutes of public comment. Thank you. Mr. Enos, can you please call names?
First up is Layla Newcomb, and then on deck will be Lieutenant Colonel Duff Smiley.
Sorry, I wasn't warned. Take me a second here. Leila Newcomb, Sarasota resident and live-in grandmother of 2 children now in Sarasota Public Schools. I did watch part of the work session today, and you guys were all fantastic, I have to say. It was very good. I actually had hoped to speak on some very interesting issues having to do with academic learning, but because of many things I've been hearing lately regarding education and much more, I want to go back and remind everybody about the period in American history that happened in 1929, for those of you that might recall having learned about it. I don't think any of us were alive at that time, but there was a stock market crash. In fact, the whole country was crashing. People were starving, banks failed, etc., etc. Then we had a really brilliant president who set up a few things, like the New Deal. Things were set up like Social Security, other federal government-based programs, saved the country from total collapse. But there was no dictatorship. We still voted for things, got to choose our leaders, and there were differing opinions, but at the end of the day, people would shake hands and get along after the elections were over. So now, nearly 100 years later, many of these things are being called socialism or even communism. Now, of course, I agree that communist dictatorship is a very bad thing. And guess what? Fascist dictatorship is also a very bad thing. We saw that one in the 1930s. Hopefully there's not another one of those coming soon. So anyway, I heard a speaker recently call the Federal Department of Education communism. And that's pretty much a stretch, in my opinion. And throw in here police departments, fire departments, building of roads, and federal insurance for people's bank deposits, which is all paid for by the government with all of our taxes. And some people might define those as socialism too. My point, when all is said and done, and no matter who ends up on the school board after August 20th, I think we all need to think about this and not destroy the greatest country in the world by tearing down all the things that have benefited everybody in the modern world, including our public education and overall our democracy. One last thing, violence is never the answer. Thank you.
Thank you. Lieutenant Colonel Duff Smiley, and then Esther Rockwell.
I'd like to thank Karen Rose for her leadership. She is the most qualified board member that has ever served on the school board. For 31 years, she has been a teacher, principal, superintendent, staff, and a board member. She courageously terminated Superintendent Asplund, who was championing social programs that crowded out basic education. In record time, Mrs. Rose got the train back on the track and hired a new superintendent that has the support from all board members and most parents. Superintendent Connor and Mrs. Rose put basic education above social programs, and because of her actions, basic education has improved. Thank you very much, Mrs. Rose.
Esther Rockwell, and then Liz Morris.
Good evening. My name is Esther Rockwell, and I've been living in Sarasota for 39 years, in the same house. I'm here today to thank this board for accomplishing the following things. Number one, you voted and signed to protect the girls' resolution to not follow President Biden's new Title IX changes to allow transgender males in girls' bathrooms and showers when they identify as female. Two, you promised to increase third grade reading scores and delivered by having a record high of increase of 7%. Three, I can't read what, I don't have my glasses on. By terminating the previous superintendent, you appointed a new superintendent who has been outstanding. Four, you have developed a policy for parents to walk the children to classes in the morning. Three, another policy for parents to record their child's IEP individual education plan. Seven, having eliminated diversity, equity, and inclusion positions, which are really woke positions. Eight, a strategic plan rewritten to focus on academic achievements. Nine, saving $100,000 a year by not advertising public notices in the Sarasota Herald Tribune. Wow. This looks like you've accomplished quite a bit, and the reason why you were elected. Instead of being criticized every month by the same woke crowd, you should be commended for accomplishing the very things parents want and are concerned about. Thank you.
Liz Morris, and then Sonia Howman.
Good evening, everybody. Board, superintendent. Let me put my glasses on. Those in attendance and the viewers at home watching this on YouTube. My name is Liz Morris. I'm a resident of Sarasota County, Venice, Florida, registered voter. And I stand before you tonight as a voter in Sarasota County that wants what is best for students that attend and will attend Sarasota County schools. I taught middle school reading in the public schools for 32 years, work that I truly loved and was so passionate about. Though I have my master's in school administration, I chose to stay in the classroom because I knew that's where I would make the biggest difference. Truly, teaching children to love reading, is there anything better? After 32 years, this is what my students taught me. When children see themselves represented in a book, the message is, I matter. When children see someone that looks like them in a book, that is a doctor, a nurse, a lawyer, a teacher, an architect, a social worker, or a wonderful father, they will think, hey, I can do or become that too. When children see others being loving, being helpful, and kind, they will get the message, these are great traits to possess. When children learn about other cultures, food, religions, dress, and holidays, they broaden their scope of the world, and they might say to themselves, isn't that interesting? They may read about a scientist who is working on a cure for cancer and say, I want to be part of the team that works to eradicate cancer. When children learn about others of different lifestyles, it allows them an entry of understanding that not everyone is the same, that our world is multidimensional, and isn't that wonderful? There is room for learning about everyone, and to say that one group is above another or shouldn't be studied is to say one person's life has more value than another. Did you know it only takes one adult to get a book banned or challenged? This ban or challenge could go on indefinitely, and Florida has more bans and challenges than any state in the nation. We must not take away our children's educational choices that rob them of the opportunity to broaden who they are as thinkers and people and who they could become. I implore the voters of Sarasota County on August 20th, 2024, vote for Liz Barker, vote for Tom Edwards, for Sarasota County School Board. Both of these pro-children candidates want what is best for the students in Sarasota County Public Schools. And thank you very much for your time this evening.
Sonia Howman, and then Alex Lieberman.
Hi, I'm Sonia Howman, Christian mother of 4 and a doctor, and we do all agree on one thing. Violence is never the answer, ever, and it certainly isn't a Christian value. I really don't have much to say, so I'm going to read a memo that was in the Herald Tribune with slight alterations. And it said, by continuing to engage in political theater, the Sarasota County School Board has lost much of the trust of Sarasota County. How can it be reclaimed? They suggested following typical board practice, making enforceable conflict of interest rules, and instituting a code of ethics that board members who are in violation must be called out despite their ideology. Decisions must be impartial and clearly tied to the district's mission of every child, every day. The board should reflect and champion our community's diversity. Members have to avoid making decisions that benefit some students while completely ignoring the absolute needs of others. The board should make it easier, not more difficult, for the public to address you. Please remember that your students, mostly, are not of the age to vote, and this is their most direct way to address you and tell you their needs. On August 20th, we have to vote. Otherwise, we risk installing a board directed by a single ideology. And we have a great opportunity for the community to come together and rebuild trust. But I have to commend you, school board, because I've heard some of you refer to the people who speak here as activists, and I've never ascribed that label to myself. But on your recommendation, because you mentioned it, I went to some C meetings. I had the pleasure of meeting some of the most brilliant, erudite, engaged, astute, and passionate young people I've ever encountered in my entire life. These people are products of the Sarasota school system. Their integrity, their strength, their desire to change their community is something to truly be proud of. They are truly inspirational. I know you had a role in this. Whether it's through excellent teaching, as a role model, or even as a catalyst for change, you should be proud, because I've never, ever encountered this kind of kids, and I taught medical school for years, that are this dedicated, this passionate, and on the side of right, and doing the right thing for everyone involved. So thank you very much, and I appreciate you guys listening.
Alex Lieberman, and then Barbara Vaughn.
Hello, board. My name is Alex Lieberman, and I'm a student at Pineview School. I know that today you discussed raising the price of school lunch and breakfast. I kindly request that you do not raise the price of these meals, as many students depend on them and cannot afford to pay more than they already must. A better solution would be exploring the federal community eligibility provision, which provides free meals to every student regardless of their income. Over 60% of the schools in this district are eligible or very close to eligible for this program. Student hunger has a negative effect on grades, as well as many other factors that contribute to a student's daily life. All educators deserve a fair wage, but students and families should not be responsible with paying for that with higher school lunch and breakfast prices. With the school board's $1.7 billion budget, it is reckless to increase meal prices without at least considering other options. For a family with 3 children, with the proposed prices, they will be spending about $360 a month on feeding their students at school alone. Over 9 months of school and factoring in breaks, this will total to about $3,000. In contrast, according to the 2023 Federal Reserve Economic Wellbeing Report, 13% of all adults would not be able to pay an emergency $400 expense by any means. A family with 3 children would pay about 8 times that for school meals over the total school year if these prices were raised. Please look at other options before raising school meal prices. Pinellas County is a great example. It offers free breakfast for students, and lunch is only $3.25. For 3 children, this would be $195 a month, and families would be able to save over $1,500 compared with the new proposed prices. I encourage you to find a better way to fund school meals to best accommodate all students regardless of income. Thank you for your time.
Barbara Vaughn, and then Tamara Solom.
Good evening, Board. I'm Barbara Vaughn, and I'm going to revert to my original plan here. And I'm going to pray, and I invite all of those who would to join me. Father God, we thank you for the many blessings you shower upon us, and we ask forgiveness for the times that we neglect thanking you for our many blessings. Today we thank you for our school board. We thank you for each member and for our superintendent. He's done such a wonderful job for us, Lord, and so has our board, and we ask you to bless them with health, well-being, safety in all they do. We ask you also, Lord, to bless our teachers who give so much of themselves to our dear children. We also thank you for the administrators who keep our schools running smoothly. We ask you for the administrators and the teachers, those who come in closest contact with our students, to be especially kind and helpful to them. And most of all, Lord, we pray for our children, for the boys and girls who go to our schools. We ask you, Lord, to focus them and those who work with them on the academics, the things that they go to school to learn. Lord, we ask you to help them in every case to keep improving their reading scores and their math scores, and help them learn life skills that will improve their futures. Lord Jesus, we ask you to be with all of those who are running in coming elections. We ask you to keep everyone mindful of their tongues and their hands and feet as we go forward in these local elections. We have seen, however precariously, the danger that a candidate for office encounters. We appreciate your hand of interference in the would-be assassin's bullet. Lord, please protect all of our candidates without favor. Lord Jesus, keep them all safe and well, and keep those who support them. within the bounds of safety and well-being.
Tamara Solem, and then Christy Carwat.
Good evening, Superintendent Connor and school board members. I am Tamara Solem, parent of 2 Sarasota County School graduates, substitute teacher, and now a USF graduate student in counselor education. I want to thank the Sarasota County students who have been speaking up here, and Ms. Marinelli for showing me how important it is to have a caring counselors who are effective at working with and providing services to culturally diverse populations. First, I want to commend the superintendent and board on several items put forth on your agenda today. One of the items is for the approval of a new private school specialist position. This position ensures proper implementation, monitoring, and enforcement of equitable service requirements in accordance with federal regulations. Having 15 private schools participating in Title I funding alone is a lot to ensure equitable service provisions, especially with our tax-funded voucher system. Secondly, you have also created a position for a Director of Strategic Improvement and Multilingual Learning. This position will provide leadership and direction in the preparation, implementation, monitoring, and evaluation of federal programs administered under the Every Student Succeeds Act, ESSA. The program receives $15 million in federal funding. Third, I support the approval of establishing the Parent Outreach Liaison as a district-appointed position to be funded through Title III Part A grant funding to increase English language learner parent participation and to support the instructional experience of EL students at home and school. This is a critical position as our district has 5,552 ESOL students receiving services. These positions exemplify the importance and necessity of our federal Department of Education as it supplies much needed funding, but also guardrails for schools to provide essential services to our community. Which brings me to my final point. I wish to address you, Ms. Rose. You have stated publicly that you want to abolish the Federal Department of Education. You did not attend the recent Tiger Bay debate, but instead you made several incendiary remarks in an interview with Francesco Abruzino on The Scoop. You called many citizens who attend these board meetings left extremists, stating that they are vile and inappropriate and would bring that to the debate. You claim students involved in social equity and education organization as being solicited using pizza and organizing sound bites specifically to attack you. I understand it scares you that communities are organizing to create a better school board culture. I recently spoke to a family member who worked with you when you were a principal, and he said to me, I don't understand what happened to Karen Rose. As an educator, you should be encouraging the involvement of young people in the political process. Your constituents call you out on your behavior, support of discriminatory policies, and using rhetoric over and over, like your new favorite term, genderizing, to scare your political followers. We are not attacking. We are holding you accountable. Vote August 20th and put Sarasota students before politics.
Christy Carwat, and then Connie Bruni.
Good evening. I am Christy Carwat, a retired teacher who strongly supports public education. If my support for public education and my concern that some on this board are trying to undermine public education, as well as my belief that all students, regardless of race, religion, social status, or sexual orientation, have the right to a safe, high-quality education, if that makes me a political extremist, then I will wear that label proudly, Mrs. Rose. When I look throughout this room, I see very few, if any, extremists. In the past, this room was filled with members of extremist groups, such as Moms for Liberty, of which even one of our board members was a part, and the Proud Boys. What I now see in this room are parents, grandparents, former educators, teachers, students, former students, representatives of local organizations that support public education, and citizens who want the school board to ensure they truly mean every student every day. Mrs. Rose, you say you want to get politics out of the boardroom so the board can focus on academics? If that is true, then why do you label those of us who show up because we want to ensure that all students have a safe and high-quality learning environment as leftist extremists? Why do you use such hyperbole? It is you, Mrs. Rose, and Mrs. Ziegler, that have brought politics into this room with such things as your attempt to bring Vermillion into our district, with your resolution saying you're not going to follow the Title IX rules. Those are political. You are the ones who have used your dog whistles to create division and chaos. You are the ones who are following the right-wing playbook to undermine public education. If you really want to get politics out of this boardroom, Mrs. Rose, then I challenge you to stop calling people like me an extremist. I also challenge you to put the interest of the schools which you serve above those of for-profit charter schools and private schools. You are the chair of the public school board, and you should do everything necessary to ensure education tax dollars benefit public school students, not private school students and not for-profit charter school students. That is the job for which you were elected.
Connie Bruni, and then Steve Russell.
Good evening. 2 years ago, I was asked by lots of groups of moms, dads, grandparents, aunts, and uncles to kind of spearhead a group that was called ZEM, Ziegler, Enos, Marinelli. I'm glad you're here. Very glad, and I appreciate you. We went from woke to what you heard tonight was wow. That's pretty cool. I'm glad for that. Putting students and academics first and improving academics is what we asked you to do. I've watched carefully. We're finally turning the corner and getting positive results. Praise the Lord, praise the board. Thank you. I also want to thank you for listening when I came in, I believe it was January, and made a suggestion about changing the public comment policy. That's item 21 and 22 on your agenda for this evening. This will allow the board's business to return to its proper priority and let politics go to the bottom of the agenda, but still be allowed to be heard. Those two things are a delicate balance, and I think both are important so that we are doing it legally and properly. Under the new policy, the agenda and board business will be first, and then other items will be last. People will actually have a total of 5 minutes, 2 different times to address our board if they so choose. Not less time, and we appreciate that. So I want to say good job, board. Let's keep it going by re-electing Karen Rose and by electing Thomas Babish to this board.
Steve Russell, and then Paulina Testament.
This board is voting on whether or not to raise school breakfast and lunch prices. This board is voting to raise these prices after approving a for-profit charter school against the advice of their attorney to delay the vote and look further into the matter. Ms. Marinelli, Mr. Enos, Ms. Rose, and Ms. Ziegler all voted to approve that charter school. Mr. Edwards voted not to approve it. The approval of this charter school potentially diverts hundreds of thousands of dollars away from our public schools to this for-profit charter school. The vote to approve raising prices for school breakfast and lunches will primarily hurt low-income families, all families, but primarily low-income families. So let me get this straight. You voted to take taxpayer dollars from public schools to put into the pockets of people that own a for-profit charter school, and now you're considering penalizing the families of our public schools, primarily low income again, by raising the prices of their breakfast and lunches. Let that sink in. You know, we're talking to you and you say, don't talk to the audience. You don't listen to us. I seen you guys vote for banning books, for approving a for-profit charter school, for taking protections away from a marginalized group. None of the verbiage in that law states that someone can use their non-birth gender to use bathrooms or to go into locker rooms. None of that was in there. It was all just to give them protection. and you voted against that. Your response to negative comments against you is to consider a vote to limit our talking time up here. If you don't like what we hear, you attempt to silence us. I'm not up here to talk to you. I'm talking to the people hopefully watching online and here in the audience. There's an election on August 20th. I hope they're watching real closely. Ms. Rose, you stated that a lot of these audience members are up here because we have a political agenda. No one shows more of a political agenda than you do. You saying that was almost like a grade school child saying, I know you are, but what am I?
Paulina Testerman, and then Mary Holmes.
Good evening. My name is Paulina Testerman, and I have a daughter in Sarasota County Public Schools. I recognize that the board wants all public comments to be directed to the business of the board, but I cannot imagine anything more important than ensuring that our board members are competent, caring, and accountable. That should always be the business of the board. Mrs. Rose, I'm here today because I recently read an article from the Sarasota Herald Tribune from 2020. The article described an investigation that occurred while you were the executive director of Sarasota County Middle Schools. During that time, a teacher from Brookside Middle was investigated a minimum of 5 times regarding his temper and inappropriate disciplining of students. 2 of those students were considered disabled. The last incident was in 2018, and as soon as the district started investigating the matter, you immediately quit your job. In fact, I think it was 32 days later. I've heard your resignation was considered abrupt and unexpected by your colleagues. Ultimately, the school board hired a law firm to thoroughly investigate the matter. I will publicly post a link to the investigation on my Facebook page, but allow me to summarize here. 3 district administrators, including the, quote, executive director of middle schools, that's you, Mrs. Rose, played a direct role in the cumulative and systemic poor handling of the September 2017 incident, and none of them exercised sufficient accountability or ownership to ensure this incident was properly handled. That's concerning. But I found the next revelation in the reporting shocking. Mrs. Rose, you refused to participate in the investigation. You actively interfered with the school board's ability to tell the victim's parents exactly what happened and what needed to be done to make sure it never happens to their child or any other child again. According to the report, you refused countless calls, emails, and voicemails from our own school board attorneys. The investigation concluded that you failed to even call DCF to report the abuse and that you reportedly had a lack of, quote, basic awareness of Florida's statutory reporting obligations. Mrs. Rose, it's hard to read this report and interpret it as anything other than you turning a blind eye to some of our most vulnerable students, and many in the community believe that you owe us an explanation. I was especially shocked because you had made your credentials as a special ed teacher the foundation of your reputation and your reelection campaign. Mrs. Rose, as a parent, I want to ask why. Why didn't you discipline this out-of-control teacher when he started being reported? Why did you continue to give him access to the most vulnerable students in our district after multiple accusations? Why did you refuse to participate in the investigation? And why did you refuse to look at the victim's family in the eye and take responsibility for the part that you played in this? And why, as a parent, should I trust you to keep my children safe when it's been documented by this board, that you have failed to do so in the past? You have failed to stand up for our teachers and our students. This speaks for itself. I will reserve the rest of my time to allow Mrs. Rose to reply.
Mary Holmes, and then Julie Forster.
Good evening, Superintendent Connor and board members. My name is Mary Holmes, and I'm a veteran ESE teacher of 36 years. I'm so pleased that the theme this evening is Students Before Politics. Tom, I owe you a huge public thank you. I came to you a couple of months ago at an event almost in tears, explaining that our school, Oak Park, was a school in crisis of leadership, deteriorating, dangerous behavior among the students, and staff morale was at an all-time low. You simply said, I'm so glad you're sharing this with me. I'll take care of it. As always, you're a man of your word. I called Superintendent Connor's office to make an appointment and was told that he was actually going to be heading out our way very soon. We scheduled our appointment, and very soon that morphed into a forum for all staff with no administrators present. We had our private meeting, and I could tell this man was genuinely listening. I then escorted him to the Courtyard Cafe, part of our structured work program run by Diane Serpy. That program had been inexplicably scheduled to simply be closed. Diane explained the multitude of vocational skills being taught in her program, which is always a favorite rotation among our students. We then joined the rest of the staff in the cafeteria. What a turnout. Representatives from every team, nurses, office staff, our former Refocus team, liaisons, teachers, assistants, even employees not working during the summer, all had a great deal to say about the deterioration of our school and concerns for our own safety. Terrence Connor was slated to be with us from 3 o'clock to 4 o'clock. We walked out together at 5:30. He clearly heard our concerns about beginning the school year with 3 new administrators, including a yet-to-be-selected new principal. He listened carefully and thoughtfully. Changes were definitely needed, and these changes can only benefit our students. Wow, you certainly came through. I am thrilled to say that you exceeded our hopes with Sean Donovan, formerly of Sarasota High School. In just his first week, he has shown such a refreshing openness and enthusiasm. More importantly, he is listening. He's listening to everyone, consulting, and making really positive changes. The atmosphere at Oak Park is as if a huge weight has been lifted. Sometimes you don't realize how desperately change is needed until it arrives on your doorstep. So thank you again, Superintendent Connor and Tom, for taking the time to truly listen to a hurting staff. The results have been remarkable. And since we're apparently permitted to endorse candidates tonight, go Liz and Tom. Thank you.
Julie Forstier, and then Jacob Gardner.
Good evening, Board. Tonight I brought my son with me because he's always at home when I'm at these meetings, but tonight he wanted to come so he could spend some more time with me. As a mom, I am worried about the effect of the new public comment policy on my ability and on the ability of parents more generally to speak at these meetings. My concern is that this is a way to silence speakers by making public comment more inaccessible. Now, I know you like to call us political activists, Ms. Rose, but I am a mom. As a mom, I will shamelessly advocate for my kids, the rights of my kids and everyone's kids, to ensure that they all have access to the best public education that I know we are capable of providing them. Don't you think I would rather be home with my kids on a Tuesday night? I would. But until this board stops putting developers and political agendas over our children's education, I will continue to show up here every Tuesday. The irony of having you, Ms. Rose, call us political activists when we are literally just parents advocating for the needs of our children is not lost on me. You are a political activist disguised as a 30-year educator. But let me ask you this. If you are really such a great educator, why did you lose the endorsement of the teachers union? Furthermore, the retired teachers union, the teachers who would have been working alongside you, have endorsed your opponent. Why are all of the people who supported you in 2020 not supporting you anymore? Why are your campaign signs on developer property instead of in the yards of students and families? I also wanted to touch on consent agenda item 5, the purchase of the Florida house from the county. I am very excited to see this and hope that the school district has plans to adequately make use of the historic first green demonstration house in the country. The state-of-the-art facility will be a tremendous resource to the district, and I am excited to learn what plans the district has for the future of this treasured resource. I am also super excited that the school board election is happening on August 20th, so that we have a chance of saving the Florida house from developer control when we retire Rose. Thank you.
Jacob Gardner, and then August Ray.
Hello, Board. My name is Jacob Gardner, and I'm currently a rising senior at Sarasota High School. Many, if provided the challenge, would struggle to define me with just one word, but after a long and hard deliberation, it would be to the surprise of no one if the word decided upon was creative. But let's cut to the chase. Unfortunately, consent agenda item 22 is perhaps too creative, lacking a logical structural dimension. To be succinct, it is vague, too vague, a vagueness hiding the points of contention within the item. Agenda item 22 aims to divide public commentary into two sections. First, a period for agenda-specific items, and last, at the final latter end of the meeting, a period for general comments. This policy renders discussion for non-agenda-specific items highly inaccessible, not only to the larger pool of community members, but especially to the smaller, refined pool of students who, in theory, are the people the board should aim to serve. Item 22 is, simply, a covert attempt at making opportunities for students to speak more difficult by just tacking it on at the end. This inaccessibility and lack of clarity are carried further in the policy, in which an assertion is made stating anyone who disrupts or interferes with a board meeting or anyone who advises the disruption of meetings can be charged with a second-degree misdemeanor and may be subject to up to 60 days of jail, fines up to $1,000, and probation for up to 6 months, with the opportunity for increased penalties for second or more subsequent convictions. I agree. Many agree, actually, that disruptions and pointless instigation should be removed and not permitted in board meetings. But alas, like many policies and goals, it lacks transparency and it lacks a determinant. Who is determining what a disruption is or what qualifies as an interference? Clarity and receptivity are critical attributes and ones that should be present in the school board without question. So, board, I ask that you have both. I ask that you acknowledge the need for clarity within policies like Agenda Item 22, and that you're receptive to the needs and requests of the common people, such as in Item 4, which describes an evidence-based reading plan in which many parents and teachers have provided untapped and unrecognized feedback. All I ask is that you recognize and act on the needs and requests of the people and the community, because really, listening is not that hard. Vote August 20th and Students Before Politics. Thank you.
August Ray, and then Seneca Bristol.
Hello, my name is August Ray, and I'm a proud graduate of Sarasota High School. I'm here today for the same reason that every other student is here. We watch our board meetings, we see the actions of our board, we live out the consequences, and we decide that something needs to change. That being said, let's begin. 4 months ago, I came up to the board and gave a speech regarding the board's failure to listen to its students. Since then, I have been ignored when I came out to speak against the Title IX resolution, citing that it hurts your queer students, only to be blatantly ignored when 4 of you jumped out of your seat to pass a harmful resolution. And just recently, at the last meeting, I asked you, Ms. Rose, to attend the North County Tiger Bay Luncheon, and I miss seeing you there. I feel as a constituent of the board and a student who lived under your leadership that you didn't care what I had to say, which truly baffles me. If you don't care about the people in your community and the students who you represent, what do you care about? What's so important to you that it's worth muddying your reputation by working with the Prince of Dark Money, selling out students to garner the favor of developers, further marginalizing most, if not all, of the most marginalized students in our community by voting against the basic respect of our queer students, and jeopardizing the ability of children to eat every day by raising student lunch prices in a district where 51% of our community is living at or below the poverty line? What could possibly be that important to you? I noticed new signs popping up on developer land that read Karen Rose, every student, every day. You constantly play with the funding of our schools, the dignity of our students, the patience of our community, and the reputation of our board, and you do so without shame. And somehow you have the audacity to claim that you represent every student every day? Ms. Rose, I need you to hear me when I say this. You would be lucky to be described as representing any student on any day, to the point that the best thing you have done for our community is outrage students and get them civically involved. I've been so ignored so often by this board that I even wrote a scholarship essay about it, and won, so thank you for that. That's the thing about Sarasota County students. We don't just produce graduates, we produce advocates too, because it feels impossible to see the actions of our board, to understand its impact, and to live under the consequences without feeling as if you need to do something, without feeling as if you need to say something. That's why every single meeting, you see more students than the last one, and that's why you're constantly seeing new faces at this board. That's why you're constantly hearing from graduated students who attend college across the country who have flown back just to attend a board meeting. We wouldn't be here if you guys lived by your own motto of every student, every day. So if it takes an advocate to hold this board accountable, then I guess I'm an advocate. And if it takes an advocate in order to be listened to by this board, then I guess I'm an advocate.
Seneca Bristol, and then Grace Johnson.
Hello, I'm Seneca Bristol. I've never been to one of your schools before since I'm a Manatee County, not a Sarasota resident. However, I have family and friends in these schools, and every week I witness how you guys fail to support them. Now, you want to raise the cost of lunch, so children of color can't learn their history and see representation. LGBTQ students can't express themselves, and low-income families can't afford lunch. But you don't want us to speak out. That's very justice and liberty for all of you guys. You know what your students need and want. Instead of being there, you take their trust and you crushed it in your hands and didn't look back. Here's your school assignment. Listen to these kids, listen to these parents, listen to these teachers, and reflect on what they have said. And maybe, hopefully, one day, you guys can realize that there can be better and there can be change. Thank you.
Grace Johnson, and then Alaya Knowlton.
Hello. My name is Grace Johnson. I am a 2022 graduate of Pineview School, and I'm headed into my third year at UCLA. I'm here today to ask the board to remove item 22 from the consent agenda, as the unclear wording of this item prompts further consideration and amendment by the board before it is passed. One of the most impactful experiences of my time in Sarasota County Schools was being a part of my school's student newspaper, The Torch. It was here that I first learned about the importance of clear communication. Learning how to be an objective reporter in a culture of clickbait taught me to never trust anything at face value. I also learned that it's all too easy to tune out critical information amidst so much noise, and that sensationalism often turns the public eye so that we miss what's actually going on behind the scenes. The non-specific language of item 22 on today's agenda is something I fear might be lost in the noise. This item aims to divide public commentary into two sections, allocating 2 minutes for members of the public to comment on non-agenda items and 3 minutes for agenda-related commentary. It also makes a note that the public will be informed that it is unlawful to, quote, disrupt or interfere with a school board meeting, and that any such actions may result in a misdemeanor offense of the second degree, end quote. My concern is that the language in this item does not define the bounds of disruption or interference. This leaves it up to the discretion of the chair to make this determination however they see fit. Without defining these limits, any current or future chair could decide that any opposing comment is disruptive. Maybe you trust that the current chair would not abuse her power so grossly, but do you trust that of every chair? I, for one, do not. Allowing this item to stay so pliable is a risk with both the present and future in mind. This could leave community members at risk of spending 60 days in jail, paying $1,000 up to $1,000 in fines, and being put on probation for up to 6 months for simply speaking their minds and sharing their experiences. Public comment exists to expose the board to all the opinions of the community. Disagreeing with the board chair is not a crime, and that needs to be put in writing before this item can pass. Item 22 might not seem inflammatory at first glance. In fact, I believe with further development, it is something we may all support. However, item 22's current wording is too easily manipulated, compromising this community's right to public comment. Thank you.
Alaya Knowlton, and then Nicole Walkowitz.
Hello. My name is Alea, and 12 years ago, I spoke in front of this very board about this issue, which is the protection of LGBT students and allowing them to exist freely as themselves in our school district. Sustained efforts by students in this district led to those rights being won and them being able to exist in with dignity and respect. I am a transgender woman. I graduated at the top of my class at Booker High School in 2022, and I'm attending the University of Southern California, fully funded by scholarships. I am an example of what it means to be academically successful in this school district. Support by students and my community and teachers allowed me to succeed academically, and policies that harm trans students by denying them the ability to freely live as themselves directly causes them to not be able to succeed academically in schools. One of my friends from Booker High School, who I knew personally, was sexually assaulted in the bathroom because she was forced to use the male restroom. because of this district's policy. One of my students, who is a lesbian, when her parents found out, she was relentlessly abused by them and put into foster care due to this abuse. Can you imagine the trouble that many trans students must face with unsupportive parents due to the policy requiring them to get sign-offs and be notified of their identities? Many other people I know have been harassed by their teachers and fellow students because these policies have allowed a general consensus that they are not to be considered valid in their identities and as themselves, and this has caused them to, in some cases, struggle to even complete high school. Studies show that when LGBT students and trans students do not get support from their community, colleagues, and parents, they have an increase in suicidality, but show that with support, they do not. Prioritize the well-being of students who are LGBT and all students in the district, instead of using LGBT students' rights as a political agenda, and just support our students and do not support these policies that endanger their well-being. The board must protect every student and prioritize their well-being over the political anything. People should be able to live freely as themselves. This board turns students like me into advocates by denying them the ability to exist freely as themselves within this district. Thank you.
Nicole Walkowitz, and then Deb Hayes.
As a graduate from Sarasota Schools, Suncoast Polytechnical High, and a disabled person, I have to wonder how so many of us with disabilities continue to fly under this district's radar. Unfortunately, as so many of us have been neglected through this board's policy decisions, truly ironic considering the Every Student, Every Day motto touted by this very district. And despite it being Disability Pride Month, I must acknowledge that the number is vastly greater than any of you would like to admit. I have long accepted that this board will restrict public comment with the length these meetings tend to reach. I find it to be truly a disappointment, considering that when you do not provide opportunities for constituents, regardless of their beliefs, to express their concerns in an accommodating fashion, you make it painfully clear that it's only some students, some days. Before I continue, I want to acknowledge that I have no political agenda. I am simply just a Sarasota graduate and college student wishing to make this county a better place. I want to appreciate that from Mr. Connor's end, there will be an attempt to make private school acceptance more diverse. Regardless, it is evident from the policies of this board, and quite frankly the state as well, that regarding for-profit and private education, that those with disabilities are nothing more than an afterthought. I'd like this board to send a clear message to the elderly, the veterans, the students, and the countless residents of Sarasota County that suffer from any type of disability. I want the board to make it clear that regardless of political views, this board, elected to serve our community, will fight for every Sarasota resident every day, something I find they fail to accomplish. The expectation of messaging our elected officials at least 48 hours in advance to obtain additional time is simply unfair to all residents of Sarasota County. If this board wants to cut time, they should have an easily accessible method for those with disabilities, busy lives, or just those of us who exist among a plethora of people who may be impacted by their desires to keep these meetings short. However, attempting to limit the duration of these meetings is nothing less than a disservice to all of Sarasota. We, the people, are entitled to have open and accommodating discussion with the people we put in office, beside our fellow Sarasota residents. We are entitled to question their motives and goals. We are entitled to agree or disagree with this board's actions. We are entitled to public comment that is not restricted unfairly and does not discriminate against the 1 in 5 people in this county with a disability. We are entitled to our First Amendment right. Thank you for your time.
Deb Hayes, and then Kennedy Cole.
Good evening, school board members, superintendent, council. My name is Deb Hayes. I'm a former school district administrator here and a grandparent of a student in this county. And for the record, nobody tells me to be here. This afternoon's workshop proposed a timeline for the adoption of science textbooks for the district coming up in 2025, I believe. Normally, this would not have initiated any response from me or even thought, since it's a process that occurs routinely as textbook revisions come available. However, this time, I was struck by the fact that within the past several weeks, Florida citizens have learned of the political agenda and edicts from the governor which prohibit references to climate change in public agencies and specifically precludes textbook references to climate change. So I would like for the board to explain to the public how the district is going to responsibly teach students about alternating weather patterns which impact lives, economies, safety, supply chain, and even survival. Notice I never said climate change. And how they're going to do that and follow all of the standards in science that they're supposed to do. I know textbooks do not a curriculum make, so I'm really sure that the fine teachers of this district will try to put students before politics as they teach research-based science topics. But the board needs to give support and encouragement to those teachers to perform their professional obligations in all subject areas. Board members, I'm just asking to do your job, put students before in politics, and ensure that student graduates from our district have the knowledge and skills they are enabled to have to thrive in their futures. Thank you.
Kennedy Cole, and then Avery Cole.
My name is Kennedy Cole, and I'm a sophomore at Booker High School, and I'm here to talk about the reading plan scheduled for the 24-25 school year. Because for once, this board has done something actually substantive that will help some students, as opposed to hunting down political talking points. As a student who has come up through the Sarasota County School District, the reading plan that's scheduled for this year and years past has worked very well for me, a straight, white, middle-class kid who's not part of any minority groups. But something I've recognized, something that this board has not recognized, is that I come from a position of privilege. And this is something that you guys might recognize if you listen during public comment, if you came to our schools, if you showed up to candidate forums, but you don't. The decision to limit pre-K resources will not have had an effect on me, who went to a private preschool, but it will have an effect on thousands of kids from minority backgrounds who will not get the education they need going into kindergarten. Your use of iReady may have worked for me, who tested out of iReady a year and a half early, but it did not work for my classmates who were given 4th grade level lessons despite getting 4s and 5s on their 8th grade fast tests. On the subject of iReady, in my over 5 years in the program, I did not find a single student, parent, or teacher who found it a good and viable resource for our community. While I came from a stable household, the implementation of community schools would help single-parent households, where they might be carrying 2 to 3 jobs just to make ends meet. And while I do not need dual language immersion, the fact of the matter is thousands of students in this district, kindergarten is their first true experience with the English language. This disconnect between the community and the board that represents us grows starker every single day. It's a disconnect you, as board members, must end because it's your job to represent every single student in this district, not just the privileged ones like me. So far, you have failed in bridging that divide in this community, and let's face it, helping your community is difficult when, again, you won't even listen to them. The most open way for us to express our concerns is here at public comment, a right which is going to be limited based off the consent agenda item 22 by restricting what we can say and talk about, and even threatening criminal charges based on what we do. And with such vague language in the proposal, it's very easy to see how one might be fearful that their words might be misconstrued and used against them to press charges. Avenues besides public comments where we can address board members are slim to none, especially school visits. Ms. Rose, Ms. Ziegler, Mr. Enos, and Ms. Marianelli, I do not recall you coming to Booker High School or Booker Middle School for any reason except for maybe a grand opening or a special occasion. The only people I recall coming are Superintendent Connor and Mr. Edwards, who come for average school days. I have no political agenda. I'm a student who cannot vote, and I'm here to express my view literally the only way I can. The simple truth is that most of you board members simply don't care, and that's a fact that the voters of Sarasota will not forget when they cast their ballots on August 20th. Thank you so much.
Avery Cole, and then Liz Barker.
Good evening.
My name is Avery Cole, and I'm a sophomore at Booker High School, and I'm here voicing my concerns with this board trying to raise meal prices for all schools in the county. While I normally don't buy school lunches, I have many friends and other classmates who do. On some occasions, friends will come to me and ask, "Hey, can I borrow some lunch money?" And I, of course, say yes. I don't want them to have nothing to eat. But I wonder if this will become more frequent. Will that number raise to 1, 2, 3, or 4 students asking me if I can help pay for their lunches so they don't go hungry? While I know it's not my job to help pay for their lunches, I have been taught to help where help is needed in any way possible. And if this is the way I can help, and this is the way I can help. But as a student, this is not an issue that I should be dealing with every single day, and other students should not be dealing with this either. Instead of raising prices and doing more harm than good, explore the option to have meals covered by the Community Eligibility Program that over 60% of our district schools are eligible or near eligible to provide free lunch for, so students won't have to pay for their meals, and find other programs to help cover the other 40% to show that you as a school board care about students and schools over power and political gain. Thank you for your time.
Liz Barker, and then Richard Stammer.
Superintendent Connor, board members, good evening. I'm Liz Barker, mom of 4 kids in Sarasota County Public Schools, former school psychologist, president of the PTO at Lakeview Elementary School, and candidate for school board. I was pleased to see item 11, the approval for an agreement between the YMCA and Gulfgate Elementary to provide before and after school care. Gulfgate recently met criteria to receive Title I funding for the coming school year, and this partnership fills a desperate need for childcare in our community. Childcare is an incredible burden for many of us. As a mom of 4 young children, I know that before and after school care in particular does not have enough supply to meet the demand in our community, and not at a cost that makes it accessible to everyone. It seems obvious to say that parents need to work, but it's important to remember that for many of us, having a parent available at the end of the school day simply isn't possible. We must continue to look for opportunities like this one to strengthen the community support for our families. Looking at the unmet needs of our families and examining where schools can help, as well as how we can leverage community partnerships to do so, is an important step we can take to continue to move our schools forward. Children cannot learn effectively when they come to school with unmet needs, and parents cannot work the hours necessary to make ends meet without access to affordable childcare. Making sure every child in our district is fed, housed, able to attend school on time every day, and emotionally supported is part of how we live up to our motto of every student, every day. This is a daunting task, but I know we can rise to the challenge. School breakfasts and lunches and weekend food backpack programs help us ensure that no student is hungry while they're trying to learn, and this is the perfect arena to bring in community partners to grow our capacity, as was discussed at the workshop this afternoon. I worry that this board majority is disconnected from the needs of actual parents, so you may not fully understand our struggle. Another example of unmet needs impacting families is the lack of affordable summer childcare. Many of us have woken up early to log on at 6 a.m. to try to get a spot in an affordable summer camp, only to find the website had already crashed from the number of requests. Right now, many families rely on the limited capacity of parks and recreation for summer childcare when we have school buildings with cafeterias, libraries, and playgrounds sitting empty over the summer months. Why are we not leveraging every resource to meet the needs of our families? Creativity, innovation, and collaboration is needed if we are to meaningfully address these gaps. None of this can happen, however, unless we're willing to set aside personal and political agendas and unite behind a common goal. We must have a shared sense of urgency to meet these needs, and we absolutely have to stop letting politics dictate how we treat some students. Our families, community partners, and dedicated educators are standing ready. Are you willing to join us?
Richard Stammer, and then Michelle Posey.
Good evening. I'm Richard Stammer. I'm a 36-year retired child welfare professional from the state of Maryland and Florida, and a 22-year resident of Sarasota, Florida. And I just want to say it is so nice to see so many young people here engaging in their civic duty. That's very hopeful for all of us. I just want to say a few things, just two issues. I used to advocate on behalf of children who were removed from their families due to abuse and neglect and placed in foster care. As part of that advocacy, I would visit, along with others, various and sundry professionals, program directors, and specifically politicians who certainly passed the laws that then created the policies that affected these children. One thing I discovered early on is that these politicians were thrilled to have us there. I mean, if 6 or 7 of us showed up, they were ecstatic that we were giving them our opinions on issues that were of importance to them, which is why I'm having a hard time understanding why the board is considering cutting the amount of time for public comment for general items. I don't get it. Do you not want to hear from them? Is it because maybe there's so many people who come to testify here feel a certain way and maybe that's too inconvenient? So I'm imploring you to at least leave the public comment period the way it is currently. And when I was thinking of this, I couldn't help but have these song lyrics come through my head, and this will reflect my age. Hey people, what's that sound? Everybody look what's going around. There's a lot going around in Sarasota, and I think you all need to pay attention to it. I hope you will, and listen to it, and act accordingly and include it in your deliberations. I also want to say I'm opposed to increasing breakfast and lunch prices for our students. Last time I looked, Sarasota was one of the wealthiest jurisdictions in Florida. We really have to raise prices at this time when many people are struggling to make ends meet. And our children, they must have sustenance to be able to learn. Finally, students before politics. I was at the rally celebrating students before today's hearing, and I heard no politics. I heard students before politics. And I'm afraid that this represents perhaps some projection from the chair's part.
Michelle Posey, then Sebastian Martinez.
Hi, Michelle Posey. Coming here today to talk to you, I am going to warn you, I'm going to get just a little bit political. A few days ago, we had an assassination attempt on President Donald J. Trump. And Sarasota County is a majority conservative, a majority Republican. But beyond that, whether you like it or not, we're a majority MAGA. And I think it's important because we do have, there's the party of love and inclusion. I love it when they're not loving and inclusive. We do have elections coming up on August 20th, and guys that are watching this from home, you have a big decision to make, especially when it comes to the school board. I want our MAGA majority here in Sarasota to understand there will be no R or D next to the candidates on your ballot for school board. But only one board member has referred to Trumpers and MAGA as Nazis. That's Tom Edwards. He says he's a moderate, but a moderate he is not. Only one member of this school board forced masks on kids in elementary school. Many who had to get pulled from the district had reading disabilities because of it. He forced a $47,000 fine on this district, basically neglecting his fiduciary responsibility. He said and bragged that he was woke and building coalitions to work from inside the school district. He says he's a moderate, but a moderate he is not. This same board member, Tom Edwards, recently was interviewed for a local social media post, and he spoke literally about children's sexuality. He talked about transgender children and child sex identity. I'm going to stop here and tell you he actually talked about Bridget Ziegler's sex life. A moderate he is not. If your stomach doesn't get a little bit queasy, no matter what your sexual thing is, When you talk about children and minors in this district, and you put that connotation of sex behind it, if that doesn't churn your stomach, you're beyond help. I've heard a lot of get politics out of our school district. Nothing says that like the Democratic Party putting out a call to action to come here. You want to get politics out of this building? Unelect Tom Edwards on August 20th. I bet the ringleader will take the circus with him. Another thing I'd like to add, we've talked a lot here about labels. The kids here don't like to be labeled. The parents, the teachers, the faculty, the staff don't like to be labeled. Only one person on this dais.
Sebastian Martinez, and then Carol Lerner.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen of the board. My name is Sebastian Martinez, and I'm a proud graduate of Booker High School. Not just an advocate for my peers, but a graduate from your schools, Miss Rose. Mind you, a school that you don't step foot in except to pose in purple for a photo op when our new theater opened. You began this meeting with a moment of silence, and rightfully so, for the violence that took place at a Trump rally. Political violence or that neighbor-hating neighbor attitude has no place in civil conversation. You then followed that comment with calling every single student inside of this boardroom a, quote, democratic political activist. Miss Rose, I want to ask you to look at these students in their eyes. Your graduates, your many current students, your parents and grandparents who come to these board meetings, not for their health, for their leisure, or for any other reason, except to ask this board to put students before politics, to serve every student every day. There is no reason that a school board member like yourself should, on one hand, attend graduation, shake graduates' hands, brag about their accomplishments, hand them awards on the dais, and on the other, belittle them and attempt to degrade them by calling them activists. Be real with yourself. You're upset that students are taking part in the civic process. You are a former educator. You should be cherishing that. During my last speech, I asked you, Miss Rose, if you were serving them or us. Them, developers or dark money PACs that give your campaign 70% of its funding, or us, students, teachers, parents, and graduates. Ms. Rose, I further researched some of your past campaigns and saw the messaging, promises, and debates that aired that you participated in. I learned that you used to be fully against vouchers and privatization. Flash forward a couple years, 3 slabs of undercooked chicken and a pastry at political events. All of a sudden, you're praising our legislature for defunding our public schools with no guardrails. What political fundraiser did you attend that was so important to you that got you to give up on your values as an educator and instead become the politician that you've become today? As a graduate student, I have serious concerns of a board member seeking re-election who's flip-flopped on her values, who's 75% funded by developers, contractors, and dark money PACs, who refuses to be transparent, rejects interviews, refuses questions, and rejects publicly held debates, a chance for our community to actually learn more about you. You're a former educator who used to be endorsed by the union, who now spends her time at political dinners and seemingly disgusted by her own community. At this point, I'm pleading that you put students before politics, that you serve every student every day, that you serve us and not them. Thank you for your time.
Carol Lerner, and then J.T. Pryor.
Good evening, board, Mr. Connor. My name is Carol Lerner. I'm a retired educator. I'm the director of Support Our Schools, and I am a lifelong education activist. I am very excited about the idea of a family outreach facilitator for parents of English language learners, as explained in item 46. English language learners are often amongst our lowest performing students. I am hopeful that this position and the multilingual support team is a first step towards district-wide dual language immersion programs, something that our own Dreamers Academy has demonstrated to work extremely well. We need multiple dual language programs in Spanish throughout the county and in Ukrainian for the Northport area. Now, I was going to go on and say some positive things about other things on the agenda, but Ms. Rose, your comments made me change my mind. Now, if you notice when I introduced myself, I said I was a lifelong education activist, and I am proud that I am that. I started when I was 18 years old. I was a freshman in college, and I was asked to attend a rally. I was in school in New Jersey, in Trenton, because they were cutting back aid to higher education, and I did, and that's where I got my start. Activists. What is an activist? It means acting on something you believe in. You know, I also consider myself to be woke. What does woke mean? It means being alert. So I guess I am a woke activist, and I'm proud of it. And I'm also proud that I was at the Sea Alliance meeting today. I'm also proud that I was at the rally, and I am proud that I addressed the rally. And I must say, the students that I have met at Sea, the students that come here and speak, they are the finest students I have ever met after 35 years of working in schools, most of the time in high schools. All of you, Ms. Rose, Ms. Ziegler especially, you should be standing up and applauding these students. And these students are truly speaking about students before politics, something that unfortunately, Ms. Rose, you are not. Let me just go on about something else I wanted to talk about, although I must say, the student from UCLA said it better than me, so maybe I shouldn't even bother. But I am very concerned about item 21, which is the board meeting policy 22.2, the revision. Okay.
J.T. Pryor, and then Rana Bazzini.
Good evening. I'm J.T. Pryor. I am a queer Christian minister and product of public schools. And I just want to say I urge you, Chair Rose, to leave your political agenda out of our schools. As a minister in a congregational system, I'm often asked to listen to all of our congregants when they voice their concerns surrounding the budget, surrounding worship, and outreach efforts. It can take a lot out of me. I can empathize with you on that. This consent agenda item is troubling to me because while I do see that this would give folks an opportunity to speak twice and trust we would show up to speak for agenda items and for general comment as well. But separating hearing from citizens sends the clear message that you've been communicating all along. You don't care to hear from the public. We see it. This item warrants further discussion and it should be removed from the consent agenda. The language isn't clear. Will the board be required to sit through general comments or will they feel free to leave after the business of the board has been voted on? What constitutes a disruption under this policy? And do we get to be selective like the leadership of this board has often done and call out those who are opposed to our leadership and then whenever someone who is, for your leadership disrupts or doesn't follow rules of order in public comment, we just, let that slide. I know in my own work and in a congregation that I listen to all the congregants, even when it's hard for me to hear because I know that they hold the power in the church. They hold the power on whether or not I get funded to stay on staff in the church. Sarasota County residents hold the power on August 20th. Will you show that you care to listen? Or should we vote to find your replacement? Vote on August 20th.
Rana Bazzini, and then Casanova Daughtry.
Good evening. My name is Rana Bazzini, and I am a resident of Sarasota. It's really good to be back. Some people will be relieved, others will be disappointed. I was not under the grass. I was just under the weather. A belated congratulations to Superintendent Connor. It's going to be delightful to see your happy face back there for, what is it, 5 years now? I think that was kind of like a miracle that you got a positive consensus from this school board. Really, congratulations. You must be like another Job. Recent events have turned our focus to the election, which is appropriate, the national election. But that doesn't mean we can afford to forget what's happening locally. We have an important election that is coming up that will decide the makeup on our school board. What I'm about to say has got to be repeated ad nauseum because we know people forget. The board will most likely be decided at the primary election August 20th. It is nonpartisan. As long as you are a registered Sarasota voter, you may vote in it, and please do, because the outcome will most likely be decided August 20th. So you, your friends, whatever, make sure you vote in the primary August 20th. I would like to respectfully disagree with Mrs. Rowe's comment at the beginning of this meeting. I know memories are short, but it wasn't that long ago that there were 2 women on the school board who are no longer there, who were harassed and attacked for months by Moms for Liberty right here in the boardroom, but also by 2 groups that were going around the parking lot and harassing. One of those women was also harassed at her home. So that's not new, Mrs. Rose. That's not just happening now. And whatever the case, I don't care where it comes from. Harassment and violence are just not appropriate. There is no reason for anybody. There's a lovely saying I like. It says, love conquers hate. And I'd also like to say, as this very elderly person, I have been hanging out with the C group. They have given me a new lease on life. I call their headquarters my happy place. And if you saw the rally, there was nothing negative, confrontational. Actually, it made me think, oh, I'm sorry.
Casanova Daughtry, and then Alex Daughtry.
Hi, I'm Casanova Doherty, a former student of Booker High School, and I'm truly sorry you don't like what current and former students like myself have to say, but you cannot write me off as being disruptive or staging personal attacks simply because you do not agree with me. Nevertheless, I'm here again because today you threaten our voices with item 22 of your consent agenda, which seeks to make it so that anyone who disrupts or interferes with a school board meeting or instructs on how to do so may be charged with a second-degree misdemeanor. The problem with this item lies in the wording. Quoting directly from the document, speakers shall not make remarks while making public comments which are abusive, threatening, obscene, profane, or disorderly in nature. Nowhere in the document do you define any of the aforementioned terms, which leaves this statement indeterminate and murky at best and dangerously vague at worst. This item should be removed from the consent agenda and elaborated on. Tell us what you consider disruption. Tell us what you consider interference. Give us guidelines to go by. Give us examples of what we can and cannot use our First Amendment rights to say in this boardroom to defend ourselves. As it stands, your lack of decisive, clear description of disruption and interference leaves a dangerous amount of room for subjective interpretation that kicks the door wide open for weaponization of this policy against dissenting voices in this boardroom. The vagueness is unethical and threatening. Within the due process clauses of the Fifth and 14th Amendments lies the void for vagueness doctrine, which states that if, after setting some requirement or punishment, the law does not specify what is required or what conduct is punishable, it may be found void for vagueness.
To not describe exactly what you consider to be abusive, threatening, obscene, profane, or disorderly in nature violates the rights of speakers and could very easily be used to heavily restrict First Amendment protections. We're the voices of this community. We are the students, both current and former, that you are tasked with protecting and nurturing. If you instead focus your time, resources, and attention on restricting us and keeping our voices unheard, I see no reason for you to remain on this board. Miss Rose, you especially seem to encounter significant difficulties in regards to hearing the voices of your community. For example, your notable absence at Tiger Bay, which would have been a perfect opportunity to answer questions or concerns directly from community members. Your repeated, profound deafness to our voices will be noted by not only this country's students, or by this county's students, but by the people voting in the school board election on August 20th. Board, thank you for your time.
Alex Daughtry, and then Jessica Thomason.
Hello, my name is Alex Doherty, and I'm a student at Suncoast Polytechnical High School. I'd like to reiterate, I'm just a student. I can't vote in these elections, and so all I can do is just talk to you. I've been completely disappointed by the school board's actions, both past and present. I began attending these meetings when the resolution to ignore Title IX changes was voted on. Since then, I have borne witness to a level of political theater I never thought possible. Let's start with Title IX. Miss Rose, you hurt me and every other queer student in the county when you refused to acknowledge changes to federal law that doesn't allow harassment based on gender or sexuality. You hurt underprivileged students when you risked $50 million in funding for free and reduced lunches. You harmed all students when you set a bad example of violating federal law. This one awful decision was already a stain on your record, but there's so much more. As soon as the new board was sworn in, you fired Superintendent Asplund, who was responsible for rising test scores, and which you now take credit for. Not only is this disgustingly unfair, but in this process, you also squandered $500,000 that should have gone to funding public schools. You voted in favor of Vermilion, which was a 3-month-old company with absolutely no qualifications to be in what should be a top district. You are in favor of providing vouchers to private schools, when our tax dollars should be going to public schools. You consistently refuse to listen to your constituents as well. You impose double standards on speakers, allowing those you agree with to continue well after their mic has been cut before saying anything. But if someone you don't agree with goes over their time, you immediately cut them off. You cut the mics of anyone who disagrees with you for minor violations, while allowing your allies to continue on in the same situations. You routinely threaten to clear the chamber for extremely minor problems. You refuse to attend the Tiger Bay debate despite consistent requests from your constituents for your presence, which you provided no reason for. On every single one of these issues, you have acted in ways that directly oppose what the vast majority of your community members want. Karen, you claim to help and serve every student every day, but your motto only describes the victims of the policies you've championed. And here we are tonight. You've heard what many of the people here want. Hopefully, you've paid attention to their concerns about the specifics of restrictions on public comment, their outrage and worries about the raising of school lunch prices, and their hopes for improvements to ELL programs. As you vote tonight, and just in the future, just keep this in mind. The choice is yours, Karen. Will you continue your long-standing streak of failure, or will you put students before politics for once in your career?
Jessica Thomason, and then Elizabeth Bornstein.
Good evening, Board. I appreciate your moment of silence, Ms. Rose. I am curious, since you are wanting to denounce violent rhetoric or, activism, if you'd ask your husband to stop calling your opponent, leftist Lizzie, a sleazy Democrat who has a fake resume and is as anti-parent rights, because you know it's not true. You know that, okay? He said that this cycle. Will you do that? Will you ask him to stop that? Anyway, the other thing, I was really surprised to hear the story about the student who is a trans woman. I'm a substitute teacher, and I've run into situations where I didn't know if a student was born male or female. And I would like you tonight, after this meeting is over, to explain the policy like I'm a kindergartner and tell me, how do I make sure? What do you want me to do? Because you know who's doing it now? The kids do it. They say, that's a girl, that's a boy, and I have to figure it out because your rhetoric and these policies that we didn't even have before 2015 or 16, and everyone was just fine. I know you guys talk about how great it was in the 80s. There were no laws about the bathroom. People just kind of went where it made sense for them. But now the kids, they have to sniff each other out and sort of like tell on each other. I've got kids coming up, that's a boy, that's a girl, when really they don't know, and I don't know, and it's really, I have a lot to think about for $15 an hour, with a doctorate, by the way. I guess it's 18. I have a doctorate. I think it would be 15 if I didn't have that. But honestly, Karen, I am not figuring out someone's sex identity at birth for $15 an hour. Not gonna do it. I will not. And no one in this district should. And I probably can't after tonight. I'll probably get fired, so. Oh, well.
Elizabeth Bornstein, and then Madison Ponder.
Greetings, Board Attorney, Superintendent Connor. I'm Elizabeth Bornstein, and I'm a parent of a child in the district for the past 7 years. I'm also a Level 2 volunteer since 2017. I love Sarasota County Schools. My child's had a really great experience for the past 7 years. Kudos to her elementary school, Ashton, and her middle school, Sarasota Middle. I'm grateful. It's a great school district. Kudos, Superintendent and the Board, on a productive work session. Pleased to see the robust reading plan. It's very comprehensive, research-based. Mr. Connor and his predecessor, thank you for caring about launching our students well with reading. Dr. Stu said, the more that you read, the more things you will know, the more that you learn, the more places that you'll go. It all starts with reading. I volunteered in my child's kindergarten class helping children with learning English as a second language. Watching kindergartners learn to read despite their challenges, it's like watching flowers bloom. It's where it all starts, and that's where we need to invest ourselves. I'm also pleased to see the safe and secure schools and the locked doors, items 23 and 24 on the agenda. If only Fortify Florida had been available to the police Saturday in Milwaukee, ARs and violence have no place in our schools or anywhere. So back to the importance of reading. Let's read between the lines. This is our community. This is Sarasota Schools. We're the constituents, the parents, the grandparents, the family members, the taxpayers. Mrs. Rose is the one campaigning. You must all know this. She's the extremist bully in the room, and everywhere she speaks, everywhere she goes, trying to scare her own constituents like me, a parent advocate, a student advocate, a teacher advocate, away. Yes, I voted for you, Mrs. Rose, in the past, but now I know what it feels like to be duped, and I'm tired of the gaslighting, the smoke and mirrors games with the other women on the board. Mrs. Rose, as me, Sarasota Schools advocate, I'm the traditional community member you want here in the room. I have been here, and I am not going anywhere. And yes, I sat next to Proud Boys and Oath Keepers, and I didn't have a security escort me to my car. Right? So this is what I want the kids to hear. This is what I want.
Play a tape.
I'm not playing a tape. I'm reading something. Okay? I have to read it because I can't remember it.
Okay.
Okay?
Sure.
I'm reading from Steve Maraboli, and I'd like my time back. Dare to Be. This is what I want all the students to hear, that the board should help the students hear. When a new day begins, dare to smile gratefully. When there is darkness, dare to be the first to shine a light. When there is injustice, dare to be the first to hear it. Keep coming back, condemning injustice. We want quality education. As school board members,
Madison Ponder, and then Anya Dennison.
Hello, my name is Madison. I'm a 2021 Pineview graduate, and I am here to tell the board to change its slogan. Every student, every day. This is the slogan of our school board. This is the phrase that pops up in big, bold letters on the homepage of the Sarasota County Schools website. These are your words, and you are not upholding them. Because it is every student every day, but only some students can afford school lunches because this school board considers policies like Agenda Item 2 from their work session, which raises meal prices. This would bring the cost of school breakfast and lunch to over $120 per student every month. For many schools, or many families, covering this cost is an immense financial burden. Further, it puts the student in the unfortunate situation of either foregoing a meal and risking their academic performance or going into a debt to a school they are required to attend. Because it is every student every day, but only some students feel safe using school restrooms because this school board rejects policies like Title IX, which prohibits discrimination on the grounds of sex, gender, and sexuality. It is because of decisions like this that permit the mistreatment of certain groups, which makes LGBTQ+ students more likely to underperform in class and put some at risk of mental health problems. And this is done despite the fact that it is proven that things as simple as allowing students to access facilities that match their gender identity curb the likelihood of LGBTQ+ students developing severe depression or harmful tendencies. Because it is every student, every day, but only some students get to see their stories reflected in instructional materials and library books because this school board continues to revise and expand Policy 4.20 under Agenda Item 27 in ways that do not protect our students. This policy would limit the number of challenges to classroom material to 1 per month for residents who are not parents or guardians. Mind you, this limitation is good. However, it does nothing to quell the continued onslaught of challenges based in hate and subjectivity made by parents who continue to do so sometimes without even reading the books. Now, Mrs. Rose, we are not here because we want to be. Believe me, I have many other places I would like to be on a Tuesday night. Or because we want to push a political agenda. We are here because this board has repeatedly mismanaged funds, endangered LGBTQ+ students, and failed to listen to its constituents. We are here in our school regalia because we have to be. Because we have to remind you of your words and what they mean. We are your students, past, present, and future, and we will remember your words and your policies on August 20th when we're at the polls. Thank you.
Anya Dennison, and then Thomas Babbitts.
Good evening, board. I'm Anya. I'm a graduate of Sarasota County Schools. Gender-based discrimination is a really serious issue that has no place in our district, and I, having grown up at Pineview, understand the importance of feeling safe in my school and on district property. Chair Rose, I am so sorry if you feel, and the other women on this board feel, discriminated against. That's a terrible feeling. This is why policies like Title IX are so important, because everyone in our district should feel protected from this discrimination. Our students don't have the privilege to have police escorts. Please protect all students, especially those that don't look like the 3 women on the board and myself, and hold their safety to the highest possible standard. You talked about raising school meal costs in today's workshop. It's commonly known that access to meals at school is researched and proven to directly impact test scores, attendance, and achievement. It's also commonly known that raising the cost of something makes it harder to access. I was able to review this next school year's reading plan. My only feedback is that iReady is unfortunately a joke to myself and all my former classmates, and it should probably be reconsidered. Today, I'm instead curious for you all to consider that while on one hand, you're creating a very big, exciting, and honestly great reading plan, and on the other, you're considering raising school meal prices, which is something that we know will negatively impact achievement, including reading scores. I can see why it'd be easy to raise school meal prices. It's a seemingly small sum per student, but for the district would yield huge returns. But educational losses that will come as a result are just as important as financial gains. Why is it not worth the extra bit of our district budget to maintain the cost of meals? I'm proud to be a Pineview graduate, and I'm especially proud that Pineview's Peace Jam chapter has been hosting annual food distributions at local Title I schools for years. I'm grateful for the organizations like FarmShare that are continually willing to work with students like myself to provide nutritious food and produce to families at district schools without the financial support of the district. I wish that you all would take into consideration the significant positive impact that free lunch has had on Sarasota schools just a few years ago. There's so many of us that can tell you about it firsthand. We should be working to lower and ease barriers for students as much as we can, and raising meal prices would be a step in the opposite direction. Let's learn from history, from science, and from our community, and let's vote with students in mind. Thanks, y'all.
Thomas Babbitts, and then Xander Moritz.
Good evening, Board Superintendent. My name is Thomas Babbitts. I will not attack anybody on a board for a change. I would like to congratulate you on your academic achievements. And Mr. Connor, I called you a few times already a gift from heaven for the school board. Thank you. Our county is much better than others because of the 4 conservatives on a board. For example, California just passed the resolution that schools cannot inform parents about the child taking hormones to change sex. So, cost of lunch, nobody can blame you. This is the fault of people who vote for Democrats who ruin this country. And this is the reason the prices are doubled. And this is why, of course, the cost will go up. So I'm a legal immigrant who escaped from communism, so I know exactly what's going on. They always use young children, manipulate them to use them for the cost. I would like to thank you again and congratulate you that you turned the ship around, because the results in academic achievements were catastrophic under previous board when the majority was from the Liberal. If 4 of you could really achieve so much, imagine what five conservatives could do. So again, congratulations. Thank you so much.
Xander Moritz, and then William DeBrow.
That's unfortunate. Karen, during my junior year of high school, I interned for your first school board campaign. I knocked doors, I tabled for you outside of malls, I set up tents for you outside of polling locations, and I talked to voters every single day about why they should elect Karen Rose to the Sarasota County School Board. I campaigned for you, Karen, because the things that you say you'll do sound nice. I campaigned for you, Karen, because you made me believe that you cared about Sarasota students. So to every mother, every father, every caregiver, every teacher, every fellow student that I told to vote for Karen Rose, I am so sorry. I made a mistake. And unlike the subject of that mistake, I can admit when I'm wrong. I'm willing to do what's right. I've come to observe that you can learn more about a politician from how they serve as an elected than how they campaign as a candidate. So let's break it down. Karen, as a candidate, you promised to protect our First Amendment right to public comment. As a school board member, you've worked to individually censor speakers and to restrict the entire public comment policy. As a candidate, you promised to support district staff and to make their careers more rewarding. As a school board member, you fired a superintendent approved by more than 90% of Sarasota's families, and you've ignored every teacher past and present who's been brave enough to address you this year. As a candidate, you promised to press every penny and to spend Sarasota's tax dollars with the highest degree of conservation and care. As a school board member, you've wasted hundreds of thousands of dollars on unnecessary, unpopular, and unhelpful policies that make life harder for low-income families in Sarasota and life easier for millionaires like you. As a candidate, Karen Rose, you seem like a student-motivated educational professional. As a school board member, Karen Rose, you have proven to be a financially motivated political operative. I know what it's like to fall for the Karen Rose campaign. The big posters, the years of professional experience, the little rose flower logo that matches the name, it's very cute. I get it. You seem like a competent professional. And this is a perfect example as to why it is so important not to judge books by their covers or ban them behind parents' backs. Hey, oh, Bridget. Because, Karen, you're the farthest thing from a competent educational professional. I can't right all of my wrongs. I can't correct every lie I've told. I can't unlock a door. I can't unring a phone. But I can clear my conscience. I can warn all of Sarasota not to make the same mistake I did. I can warn Sarasota not to trust Karen Rose, but to watch her instead. And then the election on August 20th will become very, very clear.
William DeBrow.
Hi, I'm William DeBrow, Sarasota County resident, taxpayer, activist, I guess, advocate for the children and for normal schools in Sarasota County. I grew up in a time before the Department of Education, and the foundation that was laid by teachers like Karen Rose and Ms. Marinelli enabled me to achieve a BS Information Technology, Master of Science in Cybersecurity. And I didn't need the federal government putting their hand in my pocket, my parents' pocket, or putting any attachments onto any money that was received by the school that I went to. We had a school nurse office, small little thing. I was in there once. Didn't need school psychologists, didn't need much else than books, paper, and good teachers. And I want to just express my appreciation to Karen Rose for her leadership and the example she set for other teachers that might come along behind her. And we need more like her, and that's why I think Thomas Babbage would be a good fit up on that board to join you all in your efforts to keep Sarasota schools normal. You're stepping in the right direction. I appreciate that a bunch. I wouldn't be here. My child's 27. She got off on a good foot, and she's doing well. It was pretty neat when she was a child. We used to read Nancy Drew together, and I think we got all the books in a little package and all of her little stuffed animals. And it's really nice to watch her little imagination go. I was reading to her. It's cool. And I think that's what we want to get back to. We want to get back to normal again. And I think the folks, for the most part on this board, have allowed us to step in that direction. And I'd like to see that we continue in that direction. And that's why we need Karen Rose to be on that board for another 4 years. So that's about all I got. Thanks a lot.
Madam Chair, that concludes public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Enos. Moving on to revisions to the agenda. Superintendent Connor, please.
Madam Chair, an addendum was added to item number 3, which is the instructional classified personnel report.
Thank you, sir. Moving on to approval of the consent agenda. Do I have a motion?
Move approval to move to approve the consent agenda as amended.
Second.
There is a motion and a second. And Mrs. Ziegler, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I just wanted to address some of the items that were on consent, as it did bring forward a lot of public comment, of which I welcome, and I appreciate everyone for coming. I hope those who left, many of whom who've referenced that there may it appears that they don't feel that the board or certain board members are listening to them. I do hope they have the opportunity to hear some of the comments that I myself will make and perhaps other board members. But I want to speak specifically to agenda number 2122, which is public comment. I've been on this board for 10 years, and I can tell you in the last 5 years, particularly we saw there were random items that would provide lots of interest and concern. Actually, going back to 2018, which was when the gender diverse guidelines first came before this board. And then it went away. And then certainly we had COVID, which I don't need to remind anyone, but had a number of people in the community all over the country up and very divided, and it brought forward very dynamic school board meetings. At the time, there were 3 board members, if I'm correct, that were serving here, are no longer here. And it was a challenge for the prior chairs to try to figure out how properly to address the very passionate pleas from the public. And I want to make something very clear. As a parent of young children, I personally understand the impact that elections have when it comes to school board members, particularly when we go back to COVID, because my daughter did attend Sarasota County Public Schools. However, because of the poor, in my personal decisions that were made by the former board, my husband and I had to pull our child. And trust me, that's not something we planned on, and it's not something I take lightly. And so I reject the undertones of there's no one up here with young children that really understand the consequences of the decisions that are made on this board, because I sure do. Going back to the public comments, I will say that over the course of years, it's been very challenging to manage, and if you can just hear how divided people are, what one person thinks is tolerable, another person thinks is hateful. The prior chairman, the prior board chairman, before I became chairman, used to disrespect so much, so grossly, any member of the public by pointing the camera to the back of their heads. Put cameras in the dais, in the chambers, so that they could, and 2 monitors up here. I just want to give a history lesson so you just have some concept of where we've come from, to try to pinpoint who is disrupting what. I understand no matter where you stand on any issue, each of you deserve to come and speak. And I understand as a parent, even if I don't agree with your personal opinions, that when you're a parent, you are passionate about what's going on with your child. When I was chair, I defended the right for anyone to speak for their 3 minutes, literally, and got chastised, got yelled at, because certain people would call, one would direct something to Mr. Edwards, or, and then if I did not interrupt them and stop them, because I wanted to, again, defend their First Amendment right, the entire chambers would go up in arms, and that would be very disruptive to the business of the board. Alternatively, when someone yells Nazi, fascist, what have you, it's not a problem. So in my philosophy, and my board members can agree with, will probably attest to the fact that they actually didn't agree a lot of times to the element that I was really let it go, because there was just no real way to make it even. Because I know a number of people here today said, how do you decide what is what? It's a very difficult thing to do. And that's the reality. I will say Mr. Edwards and I probably agree on the fact that the one policy that we probably discussed more than anything as a school board is the public comment policy. Truly. And he and I both share the aspect of, I don't want to talk about it anymore, I just want to move forward. I commend Mrs. Rose for coming and listening to all members of the community that don't just come here, but they're begging to see a stabilization. And perhaps because they're not here, they don't understand the genuine passion that's coming from all sides, from all opinions. And it's easier said than done. Best practice across government bodies is usually to allow public comment on the business items and then general public comment. You see it in all different aspects. It's not intended to shut people down. And honestly, when I became chairman and the board flipped over, I removed that split policy for the reason of it was done in such an egregious way, and my hope was that we would let the air out, or steam, or passion, and then would find ourselves to resume to normalcy. Unfortunately, passions are still, well, I shouldn't say unfortunately. The reality is passions are still high. And so that did not work. I know Mrs. Rose has tried to find a different solution, and for that reason, I'm actually very excited about what we are presenting. It is prioritizing taxpayers. It is prioritizing parents. It is prioritizing students. And I think it's very important that you understand that, because I think perhaps there's some misinformation out there, because whether you're voting or not, we want to hear from you. You are a consumer, and your voice does, in fact, matter. And so I am excited to see us change, or at least try something different, because for all of the statements that were made, I hear you. I get it. But there's yet to be one perfect silver bullet that would be the right way to really see this calm down, to ensure everyone is heard, and to ensure a well, seamlessly run meeting. I don't see passions going away anytime soon, and that is okay. I think we all owe it to ourselves to respect the fact that we have a difference of opinion, and that we will allow this to continue. We will listen. I will listen. It's my commitment to you. I may not agree with you, and I may not do what you want me to do, and that's the benefit of voting. I will also say that it hurts the community when our media doesn't properly showcase what is in fact happening. So I can understand that many people here feel that is exclusively what the community feels. However, I'll just use Title IX as an example. When we brought that forward, we had the most emails that I've ever had, and if any member of the media wanted to do a public records request, I would check. It was something like 1,200 or 1,300 within 24 hours in support of the position that the majority of this board took, to 10, give or take. So just for some perspective, we welcome everyone from this community or beyond to come and speak. It'll be divvied up with this new policy, and I just wanted to give a little history lesson, so thank you.
You're welcome. Looks like Mr. Edwards, please.
Quickly, I promise. The first thing is I do want to talk about public comments for the very last time. This was a policy that was in place. I voted for it the first time. Having sat in this room for many hours of public comment, listening intently, I am fresher and more competent when I hear public comments that are board related. I take my votes about the consent agenda and about the business of the board very, very seriously. And that's why I like hearing those public comments first, then the business of the board. My personal experience of having lived under this policy once before is that we literally can get through the public comments and the consent agenda within a half an hour to 40 minutes, and then we're ready for however many hours of public comments. It just compartmentalizes it in case, which has happened, that a constituent comes through the door and says, hey, did you know this firewall wasn't protected? Or did you know this specific thing needs to be researched? And that's happened several times as a sitting school board member, that we have legitimately taken something off of the consent agenda, did more research, and cast a better vote. So I'm just trying to tell you in full transparency why I'm in support of this policy, why I think it's a good thing. The last thing, though, I will say, I don't agree 100% with what was said beforehand, because hate is hate. We know what that is. An attack is an attack. We know what that is, and politics and or campaigning should not be in here. And so those kinds of guidelines, to the point that I heard, is that are too vague, and we need to have a better guideline list for whomever is chair. I'm open to that discussion at some point, but I'm passing this policy for that. School lunches. The best I can tell you is the way that our system works is that we can't lose money in the operation of school lunches, because that will affect what goes into a classroom. It's a self-sustaining program, but I will promise you, as this sitting school board member, that I am constantly working, which is when you heard me say something about the All Faiths Food Bank today, because I'm out there trying to find a solution where every lunch for every child and every student in the school district is free regardless. And I will be working on that as an ongoing basis. I'm sorry we have to raise the prices. I wish it didn't have to be, but as I also said, if Sarah Dan could figure out a way to do it now, she would have. So that's why I trust her that that was the very, very best dollars and cents that we could come up with. So I also will be supporting that.
Seeing no further comments or questions, please vote. And the consent agenda as amended passes unanimously. Moving on to new business, to advertised revised board policies. Mr. Connor will present, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm coming to you tonight to seek your approval for the request to advertise our revised policies for the 28-day period required by statute. We brought this to you, policy 4.19, exertion, heat, illness, and a new policy, name, image, and likeness, at our last workshop on June 18th. Based on your no objections being raised at that time, we went ahead and are now seeking your approval so that we can bring that to the August 21st board meeting for a final approval. And so that is my recommendation as presented.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion?
I move approval that policy 4.19 be advertised. Excuse me, let me try that again. I move that 4.9, policy 4.9, request to advertise, revise the following board policies. I don't know how you want me to read that. Sorry. Future adoption. 4.19, external heat illness, new policy, name, image, and likeness.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Looking to see there's no comments or questions, please vote. And the item passes unanimously to advertise board policies 4.19. Item number 40, job description for Director of Strategic Improvement and Multilingual Learning. Superintendent Connor will present, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As presented in the superintendent's report, this is under the proposal for our Office of Strategic Improvement and Multilingual Support. This particular job description is for the Director of Strategic Improvement, which will have oversight and provide leadership and direction in preparation, implementation, and monitoring of all of our federal programs as well as our ESOL programming.
Thank you, sir. Do I have a motion?
I move that the job description for Director of Strategic Improvement and Multilingual Learning be approved as presented.
Second.
A motion and a second. Mrs. Ziegler, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I know a number of the items following this one are in reflection of what Mr. Connor had shown at the beginning during Superintendent Report. I am incredibly encouraged and excited about this. This is an area, this is one more subcategory of students that I have witnessed have been truly underserved for far longer than ever acceptable. One of the things that there are a handful, are students with special needs, or also known as ESC students, was a very big concern of mine. I know members of the board as well, Madam Chair as well, and the superintendent and his staff have executed with incredible fidelity on that. Another area that came up was our students with I feel like it's formerly known as ESOL or ELL, and now multilingual. But it is incredibly important, particularly as we see a rising increase. I know that there were some quote-unquote controversial moments when I brought forward and asked our superintendent, because there is a reality that we have a rising population of migrant families coming across the border of all sorts of places in the state, and that does have an impact on our learning environment. And if we are not monitoring that and not providing the proper resources, it is an impediment to all students. And so I am very excited that we are taking this seriously, that we are focused in to ensure that they all have the opportunity to be successful and thrive. And I believe that that's what this particular position and the numerous other ones that follow it. So I appreciate them bringing this forward. I appreciate the work the staff did to do so in the most fiscally responsible way, and I will be supporting this.
Mr. Edwards, please.
Thank you. I also have been asking for this approach since I've been a school board member, and I'm grateful that Mr. Connor did one of his listening tours in that direction, and I am thrilled with the ability that you guys demonstrated to utilize grant funding in fact, as an entrepreneur, I used to say about how you grunt something up, that you have taken that money and you have put it to such incredible use, and you backed it up with family engagement and family outreach, which was sorely missed for our multilingual families. I love that terminology. It broadens it, it makes it big, and it makes it inclusive. And I'm so grateful for the work that you did in such a short period of time from one board member that had been asking for it, I bet, from our very first interview. So thank you. I will be supporting this.
Ms. Marinelli, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be supporting this also. And I just agree with everything that Mrs. Ziegler and Mr. Edwards said. This is a very much needed position. The whole restructuring of that department is much needed because we have an underrepresented, and I do believe that through our excellent teachers, administrators, the support staff, we will be able to raise the achievement level and give the families what they need, which is extremely important. And that is why I've always liked the position of a homeschool liaison. That is a school-based position that linked the school with the family. And I just think I'm so appreciative to Superintendent Connor and the staff. Mrs. O'Day and I had a conversation from a counselor point of view of things that I, as a counselor, was not adequately trained on. And I look back at things when children come from different countries that don't have the customs and how that impacts them. So I think this whole number 40, I will absolutely support, and all of the restructuring that is coming before us. So thank you.
I have to add in that as a principal, ever since I've been a principal, this has been major needed, and I thank you, Superintendent Connor and Mrs. O'Day. You are just zooming in on the gaps in our systems, and our teachers and our principals and school-based employees will, as well as our students, will certainly benefit from this, and thank you.
Ditto.
Ditto?
That saves my comment.
Okay, ditto from Mr. Enos. Thank you. Seeing no further comments or questions, please vote. And, of course, item number 40, job description for Director of Strategic Improvement and Multilingual Learning passes unanimously. Item number 41, Superintendent Connor will present, please.
Thank you. As we continue to talk about the restructuring of the Office of Strategic Improvement, I'm presenting to you a new job description for the Competitive Grant Specialist. This particular position will collaborate with district departments to research and evaluate different grant opportunities, develop, prepare them, and secure that funding to meet whatever our district goals and objectives are. So the grant specialist will coordinate the compliance factors, because a lot of grants do come with a lot of compliance, and there's a lot of time and effort that's needed to do that, but also to make sure that we are monitoring those key metrics and focusing on student outcomes for those grants. So I bring this to you for approval.
I move approval that the job description for grant specialist be approved as presented.
Second.
There is a motion and a second, and I'm also extraordinarily excited about this position. I'm very confident it's going to have a high impact on academic achievement, students, and that it will go beyond paying for itself. It too, for my years and opportunities to serve in this district, has been a huge gap, and we will certainly benefit from this, and I thank you for bringing it forth. Ms. Marinelli, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I also will be supporting this, and thank you, because years ago we did have a position like this, and that's what the person did. They wrote the grants, they worked with the departments that would benefit from the grants, and with budget cuts over the years, that was a position that was cut. And the district really suffered for that, because grant writing is not an easy thing to do. So it would be passed on to the different department heads, me, and I would be trying to work with people, because it's very different, and you have to get community support for when you write these grants. So I will support it. I think our students, everybody will benefit from that position and the monies that we will be able to get from that, and would have a direct impact on student achievement. So thank you.
There is a motion and a second, and there's no further questions or comments. Please vote. And item number 41, new job description for competitive grant specialist, passes unanimously. Item number 42, new job description for private schools specialist. Superintendent Connor, please.
Yes, again, in a continuation of the restructuring of this department, this new job description is for the private school specialists. I bring this for your approval. This position will work closely with our private school administrators to ensure the proper implementation and enforcement of equitable services requirements that is required for all of our entitlement grants, Title I, II, III, IV, and IDEA. Currently, we have about 17 Title I schools, as well as 15 private schools that would participate in Title I equitable services, as well as 20 additional private schools who participate in Title II, III, and IV and IDEA programs. So that's 35 private schools that we are having to consult with regularly around equitable services. So this person will be dedicated to that work, which will be much needed to multiply the efforts of this department.
I move that the job description for private school specialists be approved as presented.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Seeing no comments or questions, please vote. And item number 42, new job description for private schools specialist, passes unanimously. Item number 43, increased purchasing limit for open gate. Superintendent Connor, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We've had a great opportunity this year to pilot at Riverview High School our open gate weapons detection system. That pilot has gone very successfully. We started in April. We were able to work out those kinks within a 2-week period and able to move almost 3,000 students, 2,700 students through our weapons detection systems each and every morning for the remainder of that school year. So as we continue to enhance our security protocols and assets, we want to expand this initiative across currently our high schools and middle schools is what we're targeting for this school year. It is our hope that we could get them implemented by the end of the school year, but we will monitor that based on supply and demand and implementation at each of our schools. We know each of our schools have a different, layout and structure, and it could be challenging for some of our campuses. But I ask your approval to increase to $1.5 million from capital funds so that we can begin the process of implementation in our secondary schools.
Motion?
I move that the request to increase the purchasing limit for the anticipated purchase of materials and/or services through piggyback contracting be approved as presented.
Second.
It's a motion and a second. Seeing no questions or comments, please vote. And item number 43, increased purchasing limit for open gate, passes unanimously. Item number 44, to purchase materials and/or services from Unicom Government, Inc. Superintendent Connor, please present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. We're seeking approval to purchase the Omni Alert. This specifically uses AI detection technology. It's utilized on, again, we did another pilot in some of our schools this year. We want to leverage this technology and invest this across all of our cameras in our schools. This will require an initial investment of $917,000 out of our capital funds, which we're requesting today. And then the ongoing renewal will be about half of that on an annual basis.
Motion, please.
I move that the cooperative contract awarded to Unicom Government, Inc. for the anticipated purchase of material and/or services should be approved as presented.
Second.
There's a motion and a second. Seeing no questions or comments, please vote, please. And item number 44, to purchase materials and/or services from Unicom Government, Inc. passes unanimously. Item number 45, Auditor Selection Committee nominee, Superintendent Connor, please present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. This, according to Board Policy 2.29, we must have a district representative for the Audit Committee by a respective board member. So I believe this is District 5. I think this is Mr. Enos's particular district, and he has chosen Jeff King to be appointed and be the designee for District 5 to the Auditor Selection Committee. So that is up for your approval.
Mr. Enos.
Yes, Madam Chair. He is a Sarasota graduate from the Riverview High School, same as myself. And as well as he is a Florida State University graduate, as of myself. And he was also a member of Phi Delta Theta fraternity, as also myself. With all those things, he also has been a small business owner in Sarasota County for many, many years. He owns Lawn King, and I would submit him for approval since he is a graduate of this community, as well as the state university system, as well as a small business owner for probably the last 30 years.
Thank you, sir. Seeing no further questions or comments, do I have a motion?
I move approval of Jeff King for District 5 for the Auditor Selection Committee.
Second.
There's the motion and a second. Seeing no questions or comments, please vote. And item number 45, Auditor Selection Committee nominee, passes unanimously. Item number 46, new job description for the ELL Parent and Family Outreach Facilitator. Superintendent Connor, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I bring to you this position for your approval. As you know, it's particularly challenging to really connect with parents and families, specifically when there are language barriers that exist. So the Parent and Family Outreach Facilitator will increase our English language learner participation in our family instructional programming and support. And so we bring this to you. They'll work collaboratively with our staff and our community members to create a learning environment that is consistently welcoming to our families and meet the needs of our parents as well. So they'll be providing strategies and resources to engage our families as essential partners to support their students to achieve language proficiency and academic success. And as has been stated tonight, we are growing in our English language learners and our multilingual learners, and so this board-appointed position is very much needed to meet this need. Thank you.
Motion, please.
I move that the new ELL Parent and Family Outreach Facilitator job description be approved as presented.
Second.
Ms. Marinelli, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I will be supporting this position because Superintendent Connor, this position basically has been the one that was non-paid and this person contracted. And I've known this individual, Ruth Rubenstein, for many, many, many years. Her children went through this district. She is one of the most caring individuals, and families know and trust her. So I think it's an excellent position that you are bringing on instead of having it be contracted for all these years. And again, I will be supporting that. Thank you.
Well said, Ms. Marinelli. There is a motion and a second. Seeing no further questions or comments, please vote. And item number 46, new job description for the ELL Parent and Family Outreach Facilitator, passes unanimously. Moving on to board member comments. Mr. Edwards, please.
I'm good. Have a good night.
Mr. Enos.
Thank you, Board, for approval of Jeff King. Even though with the jokes, he will be a great representative. He also had 2 children. I was remiss that also graduated from Sarasota County Schools, and he'll be a good representative. Thank you to the Board, and our meeting will be come forward soon for the Audit Committee. And Ms. Benner thanked all her help with doing it, as we're rewriting a lot of different things on that. So thank you very much, and that's all.
Ms. Ziegler, please.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I do want to close out a couple of things. I want to reiterate that I am so impressed with how much work has been done in the last year, and just to see substantive changes and executed in haste, but with fidelity, and we are seeing the most very exciting outcomes. I know that we have preliminary data in. I know that had been discussed and shared, and I know that the paper had also shared that. I know we are awaiting the numbers, I think maybe potentially next week, and to see where we fall in the state. And either way, it has been the work, the focus has been tremendous. I know that members of the public, I believe and I understand the passion. I regret that there's so much inaccurate information that fuels that passion, and all we can do is continue to share what the accurate information is, and to ensure that our staff is able to be laser focused, which they have illustrated they are absolutely capable of doing, on the mission of this school district, which is our students and their academic success. I am exceptionally disturbed that driving by 41, I see our teachers union billboard that says read banned books, and get a plethora of calls all of a sudden in between a break and what have you. Because that makes it appear that our teachers are reading banned books. I know in my heart that's not happening. I think that's election fodder. But I wanted to raise it here because we will end up hearing from people, and that kind of rhetoric is what's damaging us. There are issues that absolutely create passion, and there are different sides of different on each issue. Going back, like I said, going towards COVID, there were families that were passionate because of the certain COVID protocols, including masking children or shutting down, that had families enraged. And there were others that were terrified. So there was 2 sides of the coin, and it was very important that we listen to them. And then moving forward to certain agendas that, with factual evidence, did in fact exist in a variety of school districts. Fortunately, I think Sarasota was pretty subdued from a lot of that. But there has been changes to just refocus and keep it all on the academics, and that no matter how you identify or categorize yourself, that every student and staff member is absolutely to be ensured safety and protection and respect, full stop. There are other nuances that people are upset about, and they can create a lot of different narratives out there to create that energy and upset people. But I can tell you, I see a absolute change in the last year that I am uniquely positioned to speak to because I've been here for longer. And I have seen the dramatic change from the board putting guardrails in place that were exactly what the public voted for. And again, elections do have consequences. And then when you have leadership that is focused on every student, every day, to ensure their success. And I applaud our superintendent and our board members and staff for continuing that focus and that commitment. And I couldn't be more honored to continue to serve on this board. Thank you.
Ms. Marinelli.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I agree with what Mrs. Ziegler said, and it gets brought up all the time, the insinuation that this board has banned books. This board has not banned any books. We had 1 book challenge, and we did not remove that book, this board. So if you're going to state things, state it factually. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Marinelli. I'm going to end by celebrating that we are moving, and our teachers, our administrators,
Mr. Hutchinson's school went up 14% in third grade reading, and that's a perfect example. We are moving. We've moved to, in third grade reading, the nucleus of all future success of every individual student, and I don't think there's anyone in this boardroom that would argue that we're not all here for that reason. With those raw scores, Granite has moved up to number 2 in the state. That doesn't mean second in the state, and it doesn't mean that we don't have a lot of work to do, but for several years, we weren't moving. We are on the move, and I thank all of you and our teachers and administrators for that impressive stuff. And then we'll end with hoping Jamal Gwalar goes out and celebrates his birthday. Announcements. On July 23rd, we're having a special meeting at 4:00 p.m. for the tentative budget. On July 30th, we will have our annual second special meeting, which is a public hearing to adopt the tentative budget and millage. And then the next regular board meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, August 6th at 6 o'clock. Be safe and have a wonderful evening. Thank you all.
It's so cold in here.
Keep